Now that you've found UBN Radio and discovered our quality talk shows, it's time to spread the word to friends, family, and the universe. 24 hours of music and talk. Radio without limits. That's why people keep coming back for more. That's ubnradio.com.
Welcome to Richard Listens on Sports. I'm the host of this show, Peter Sobey, and we have a great show lined up for you today. We're very excited to be here live from UBN Radio TV, the Universal Broadcasting Network, at the beautiful Sunset Gower Studios in beautiful 100-degree Hollywood, California. But we're excited to be here live, and before going into a whole lot of anything, let's bring the resident doctor, the man, the psychologist, the legend, Richard Olberger. And it kind of, it's interesting because it's not just a coincidence that the name of the show is Richard Listens. Your name is Richard. You're a psychologist and you listen. I think people have put that together already, but just in case.
That's why I'm here to talk.
So, Richard, a lot has transpired over the last couple of weeks. We have a really big show lined up for you. We have a super, super special, great guest in studio with us today. And I'm going to kind of like, obviously, if you've seen the marketing, you know who it is. But right now, while we're live on the air, I'll just kind of leave it as a teaser that we'll be bringing him aboard live right here in the studio in moments after we kind of talk about things here between Richard and myself. As you know, we do come through live on facebooklive.com/RichardListens. And if you leave a comment or a question, we're always happy to address it live on air. And we always look forward to seeing new contributors in that. So we also have, this is exciting, Richard. This is our second official show as Richard Listens on Sports. It's exciting format. Basically, the motto of our show is sports, life, and the intersections between. It
is. And we had a lot of intersection the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, speaking of sports and life, it's kind of it's interesting because I think, we're going to kind of start with your story here as far as life leading to sports.
That's right.
So kind of,
how's
your last couple of weeks been there, Richard?
Well, yeah, I mean, we dropped in last show. I was live from New York, and it was with a heavy heart. And certainly, this is a show on sports. We're not here to bring you down. But we always promised we'd be honest with you that this was about the inner journey of the athlete. So good news is that I think I ran 5 miles this weekend for the first time in a decade. And personal record on the deadlift today of 215 pounds. So I'm continuing to push the levels of the inner athlete even as I grow longer in the whiskers. But on a serious note, it's been a heavy 2 weeks. Lost a dear friend, Andreas Cahan. Some of you have seen the posts. His family has requested donations to the Brain and Research Foundation, and we appreciate that. And it's always sudden and tragic to lose someone that quickly, and what it takes out of you emotionally to deal with grief and loss. So it's been really profound for me to try and work through it, to try and serve people like athletes who continue to try and perform no matter what they're going through. But there's definitely been an air of sadness and a seeking of space to feel intense cycles of anger and sadness. So it was pretty beautiful at the same time to watch all the healing that can transpire in those spaces when you're in pain, all the reconnection with old friends, and at the same time carrying on my life being surrounded by sports and noticing the community of healing that transpires while in that process.
That's amazing. So in that regard, you spent some time in Cleveland this past weekend. So you've been from
I do. I'm gonna break
New
out.
York to Cleveland, back here to LA with your Indians cap on there. So I do want to mention before we get into your Cleveland story too, I was so excited to not excited to get to Stories of Life and You, but we also do have a new feature tonight called the Wellness Fitness Minute with Caitlin. And we're going to be bringing her live from Mexico City via Skype in a little bit on the show as well.
Awesome.
So an exciting new feature. And our guest is coming up very soon too. And don't forget to leave your questions and comments for us. So we are back after that little teaser for later in the show on Richard Listens on Sports. Richard, you are now wearing your Cleveland Indians hat. So what brought you to Cleveland this past weekend?
We had, like our guest, who we met at a fabulous workshop less than a month ago with Dr. Ken Revisa, who hopefully will be joining us in the near future. We'll be talking. You saw my stickers a couple shows ago that I was giving out. Those are one of the tips from Dr. Ken. But I was meeting with Jack Lessick, who is former sports psychologist for the Cleveland Cavs. And he is, I believe, the director or president of the Ohio Center for Sports Psychology. And he is a leader in the field in working with everything from equestrian to ice skaters to being open to whatever challenge. I believe he's even coached people through bagpipe competitions. So that'll be one for I'm not sure my game would be ready for just yet. But fabulous tips on how to expand this growing field and bring together people from all over internationally. There were people there from Jamaica, and people have been doing the sports and performance work and really trying to reach out there to help different segments of the population.
And so you had a chance to do a couple things. We have a couple photos, Jarvis, down there in the 21s through 24 and 25. You made it out to a couple of Indians games, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
It was a fabulous journey, like I mentioned. I mean, there was some grief, there was some sadness at the same time. But to be to explore a different city and the culture around sport, the excitement of that beautiful new stadium in Cleveland, the people, the fans, even the staff. They have ambassadors there who are more than happy to. There's a photo there of all the different. There I am, fourth row. Somebody.
Yeah, your seats look prime, man.
It just gorgeous place for baseball. Wonderful people, and people accompanying me are, athletes who are working on expanding their sports psychology careers. So it's just inspiring and overwhelming. In fact, when you have that much influx of opportunity coming to you despite a heavy heart. So but it creates an opening for good things to come.
And you met some new friends there, it looks like.
Definitely new connections. And what's better when you have goals than people who you can help be accountable to. So every step of this feels like it's just serendipitous. You meet people. It's like, you can't go into battle alone. It's really intense and scary and overwhelming, and you get the people who are really trying to carve this out of their niche. And it's not easy to go into a field which I think relatively sports psychology is not even large enough of a group within the American Psychological Association. It's like minuscule. So the amount of members but pioneers maybe.
But what's interesting, I think, about your past couple of weeks is, like our show motto is sports and life and the intersections between. It's like you had this very deep life experience, and then it was kind of sports that kind of brought you some healing per se or something.
Exactly. I mean, my own, you try and get on a fitness regimen. We talk about goals. I'm sure Caitlin will bring out some tips like that. But I was out there trying to keep going physically, and at some point your body will give out. I could not lift weights. Like my physical body, when it's holding that much emotion, sometimes we talk to people all the time about transitions. And Jack Lessick talked about that as well. And Ken Revisa mentioned about, taking the breath and focusing on the breath. I mean, and you realize the irony that if we don't follow the same practices, if we don't prepare, if we don't game plan or adjust when we're going through something, we can't continue to perform at the same level. And so I think that's really humbling, but really also very amazing, because I'm going to ask top athletes who are being paid to perform to take a moment to step back, step out of the box, as Ken Revisa says, right? And and then I need to be able to model that.
That's amazing. We're going to get to our guest in just one more minute. We're very excited. Great person. But before we get to him, first of all, Raheem Duncan, What's up, Rich? Go Cyclones.
Oh, Southside High School. I think he was our leading scorer. But
Wow.
man, was he always an awesome teammate. So thank you, Raheem.
Yeah, and then also, it's a week after Father's Day, and I brought a little gift for you.
This is my first pair, after being a lifelong Met fan, of New York Mets socks. So I will be rocking these no matter what our record is this year and how bad our pitching is.
Amazing.
Thank you.
So happy Father's Day.
Thank you very much. Thank you
Yes.
for the welcome and the time and for hearing me out.
And with that said, Dr. Richard, it is now time to introduce our very special guest that is live right here in the studio with us, all the way from sunny Hermosa Beach, California. We'll get into everything he does. He's an amazing, motivational, inspirational guy. He's a peak performance coach. Without further ado, Chris Stretch. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Peter, Dr. Richard, thanks for having me. My condolences to you, Dr. Richard, for
Thank you.
what you have gone through.
And thank you for listening. That was excellent therapeutic skill there.
Excellent. That was heartfelt. I really appreciated hearing that and listening to that. And I love the theme of the show. The intersection, sports and life, and the intersection between the two of them. Because I so connect to that concept. It's such an important part of my life. So I just so appreciate having you guys having me on today.
Yeah, I mean, really, what you do and who you are as a person actually really kind of embodies that.
I think so. I recently got into the social media push, I guess, to try to get the message out. And I'm such a perfectionist that I rarely get something perfect. But when I came up with this authenticity _ performance, it was like this ding. It was just perfect, because to me that's really what I'm really trying to accomplish in my career and my life, is how to connect this authentic value that I believe we all have as human beings to performance and how we perform. And that can be in high-level competition, recreational competition, and just performing in life. So I think that those two concepts very much overlap, I think.
Amazing. And just we kind of didn't go over this before the show because it was a little crazy, but as weird as it sounds, like the audience, they see us in little squares and stuff like that. So as much as it's good to look at me when you talk, Chris, maybe look more at that camera over there so people can see that handsome chiseled face more than your profile. So as much as like eye contact is great and we all do it on that, yeah, you could look at the audience a little bit there too, so they really can connect with your soul.
Sounds like a plan. All right, thanks for pointing that out to me. I appreciate
Yeah, totally.
that.
And everyone stand by, because in like about 5 minutes, we are going to bring Caitlin on board with her new feature on our show, the Wellness Fitness Minute. But before we do that, Chris, tell us a little bit about yourself. Like I introduced you as a peak performance coach, but you're way more than that. So just like, let's give our audience a little bit about your story and your journey and what you're doing.
Well, let's see here. So I came out of the womb going. I mean, I was really from the get-go, it was all about sports. I mean, when I was about 18 months old, 2 years old, somewhere around there, there was some ball-shaped figure in the family room, and I grabbed it and I chucked it across the room, and my dad was exuberant about the possibilities because I have two older sisters. So, fast forwarding, I mean, I was that kid that I woke up early before everybody else. I got my Little League outfit out. I laid it out. I admired it. I put it on. I looked in the mirror. I mean, I just loved baseball. I just absolutely loved baseball from the very beginning. And so, I was really good at it. And typically speaking, I was probably, if not the best, one of the top 2 or 3 best players when it came to Little League all the way up until I was 14. So, my life as a youngster was really filled with just wonderful experiences in Little League. My dad coached me. My dad passed away last April. So one of the great moments that we had was him making the lineup every night before the game. He would coach me from age 9 till age 14. And I'd sit next to him on the couch and watch him put the lineup together. And as I got older, I got to
Give some opinions.
Give some opinions. I was always second or third, so I never really had too many issues with where I was playing. But So life was good. Life was really good. I think I was developing some pretty ridiculously high expectations for myself because when I got into high school, that's really where I started to develop a lot of issues. And my junior year in high school, think of it this way. My high school had been ranked number 1 or 2 in the whole Orange County. When I took over the starting quarterback position, my high school had lost 2 games in 3 years.
Wow.
And
talk about pressure.
Talk about pressure. And we had, and it was big time. I mean, the top 3-4 teams at the time were Mater Dei, Los Alamitos, Esperanza High School. And I, so let's say about 3 years ago, I was on the high school field. I got invited by the coaches, and I got out there, and it's the first time I'd been out there probably since I played high school, and I was overwhelmed with the emotion. I mean, I had just had tears in my eyes, and my old head coach is now like an offensive line coach, and I saw him, and I just started crying. I just, tears were pouring out, and
wow.
I could smell the sense, and what I remembered was the pressure. I mean, the pressure was intense. I mean, 16, actually, I was 16 years old, and it's like, hey, take over a team where you're going to have 5,000 to 6,000 people at your games. One game my senior year, there's 11,000 people in my game. And by the way, we've only lost 2 games in 3 years. So my high school football experience was really profound in terms of my life. And I ended up pulling out a pretty good senior year, and I got recruited to play football at UC Davis. But my memory of it was pressure, stress, and more pressure. That was pretty much my memory of that experience.
Wow.
And at that point, did you have anyone in your life like yourself now to talk to?
No, I didn't. And, it's weird. Looking back at that experience, there was this, you could see from watching me that I was really struggling. But if you were to ask me to my face, I would have said, "Oh no, I'm fine." I didn't have anybody around me that embodied this vulnerability. Where you could say, "I'm not very confident right now. I don't feel very good right now. I'm worried that everybody's trusting me, but yet my leadership skills are lacking, or maybe I don't feel that confident enough to be a leader." I mean, there was just no avenue for me to share that with anybody. So I did the whole fake it till you make it. And my junior year, I had a horrible year. I ended up losing my starting position for 2 games. I locked myself in a room. My mom later said that she was very concerned about me emotionally and thought I was clinically depressed. And, right about the time she was going to do something about it, I ended up, gaining my starting quarterback position back. And I finished the year as a starting quarterback. So, excuse me. So, but that was a little bit of something to come.
Performance solved and emotional problem solved. That's kind of the equation.
Yeah. Like you said, we've both met. All of us have met Dr. Ken Revisa, and he's got these. His new book has this interesting these greater thans, and it's a mission greater than feelings. And I was so identified with my feelings that I couldn't really connect to a mission. So, and not only that, I was identified with my performance. So it was almost like I probably walked taller, felt better, and was just more equipped to handle things in my life if I was 3 for 4 the previous game, or had thrown for 150 or 200 yards. If I'd had a bad game, or in baseball strung a few bad games together, I was pretty miserable. It really affected me. So he talks about these things about performing, but not letting your performance be who you are, being greater than your performance. And so some of these things we're talking about today are so refreshing. Because I didn't have that back then. It was just be quiet, you pretend you're confident, and that's just what you do.
So we're going to take that into furthering your journey and how you are where you are today. And also we're going to be getting into, you work with youths a lot. We're going to be getting into talking about youth, which we do on this show a lot, youth in sports. But right now we are going to take a break.
Let's do it.
From all this sports psychology talk and history. And we have a new feature on Richard Listens on Sports, and it's a very dear friend of mine, and it's called Fitness Wellness Minute with Caitlin. So she is coming into us via Zoom live from Mexico City. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Caitlin to the show. Welcome, Caitlin. Can you hear us okay? Oh, I think you're on mute, Caitlin. Okay, now we hear you.
All right. Hi, guys.
All right,
Thank
we
you.
got it. Hi, Caitlin.
I'm so excited to be on the show because, like the name of the show, Life in Sports, sports have been my entire life. And many years I trained with professional baseball athletes and have been through the ringer of all different aspects of the sports life. And so thank you so much for having me today.
Absolutely. And, you know, today, I mean, we want to make this a feature. So we're hoping that every other week when we do the show live, we will be spending a few minutes with you.
Fantastic.
And I think that you bring a great perspective because you do come from that sports background, but, you know, you've been involved in pageants. You're a model. You're an actress. You're fitness, wellness, the whole thing. So you definitely bring a very fresh perspective to us every other week. So thank you.
Glad to do it. And is that Tony who I see on the bottom there, bottom of my screen?
No, you are looking at, I'm not sure who's on the very bottom. There's Chris Stretch, our guest, and Dr. Richard Olberger's on the very bottom. He just waved at you.
I believe you were talking about deadlifting, right?
Yeah, it was. First time trying to do it. Like,
really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I trained many years in my deadlift, and I think my highest in competition was like 225 or 230 on my deadlift.
You
Wow.
see, now I've got another challenge in front of me.
Yes.
Yes.
No, I had to bring that up being the only female on the show today.
Wow, that's incredible.
And so we're not going to, you know, every time we do this feature, we're not going to, you know, spend a lot of time getting to know you. We do have your contact information on the underneath you there. But since this is the first one, do tell us, just to give us a short history of who you are. And, you know, the show, we want to motivate, inspire our audience. And the reason why you're here is because we also love to give them tips and motivation. But go ahead and tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, if we bring it way back into the beginning of time, I've always played sports. Soccer was a huge part of my life for over 15 years. I did softball, lacrosse, tennis, dance, was varsity captain of my dance and tennis teams in high school. And then once I got into college, I did competitive dance and then transitioned into bodybuilding and powerlifting. From then, you know, I've suffered many injuries coming from different car accidents, or when I got into the powerlifting, you know, I was weighing it at maybe 100, 125 pounds and pulling about between 200 and 235 in my deadlift. So with a combination of different things, I've had injuries and had to train my training regimen and learn how to, you know, listen to my body. I think it was your guest there. Excuse me for not remembering your name right at this moment, but
Chris.
But listening to your body and kind of telling yourself that I need to take care of myself, or I need to take a break, and kind of realizing where you are in your career and your life. And being an athlete from like the time I was born, it was so hard to, you know, hear my body say you need to stop and you need to rest and you need to heal. But I'm grateful for all those tough experiences in my training, because it has helped me help other people with my business, which is now KitBody, which focuses on helping people with the nutritional aspect, as well as being a personal trainer and looking at their exercise regimen. Because when it comes to being an athlete, whether you're, you know, I guess you just living your everyday life, or if you're a professional athlete, you have to look at the big picture of things. You have to look at, you know, your sleep, your lifestyle, all these different things, because they all contribute. And I think our guest was also talking about the stress level, which has a huge effect on the body, not only physically, but also mentally. And when you're competing, or if you're playing a sport, the mental part of it comes and contributes just as much as anything else. So I hope that's a quick little snippet of my experience and how it's helped me transition to help other people in fitness.
Absolutely. It's incredible. And before we get to your actual fitness wellness tip for the day, can I also share a little bit about how we met and our connection there? Because besides being fitness, wellness, you know, actress, model, spokesperson, incredible person, like, you have such a deep, caring soul, which is, I think, you know, one of our big connections together.
Yes.
So,
So you want me to share it? Or do you want
yeah,
me
why
to?
don't you go ahead and share it? You're really good at this.
Well, how did we actually first meet? It was just a connection on the internet, right?
Yeah, like on Instagram, I think, because you reached out because you saw I was a quadriplegic.
Yeah. So when we met, we started talking. For my history, my father was a quadriplegic from the day I was born. He was in a swimming accident in Plum Island, Massachusetts. So when I was born, I only knew my father in that way. So that just, I guess I grew up very differently than most in that aspect. And my father has always been my strength and inspiration, and that he never gave up. He always pursued and persevered over so many challenges and adversities that he faced in his life. And when I started to get to know Peter, I felt there was an instant connection, and we decided to meet in person, and it was like we knew each other forever. And Peter, you're an inspiration to me for the same reason, that your strength and perseverance to continue and to inspire other people by, sharing your story and your experiences. There's so many people, I think, in our world and our society that are just not even exposed to the type of lifestyles that we lived, or the kind of knowledge we know from the different perspective that we share. And I think even when it comes to sports, that's such a huge thing to share, because not everybody in the beginning who goes through something or such a big adversity like yourself or like my father, or even the people in the families who are affected by it, sharing your story and sharing the experience that you have just opens that door, or just, I don't know what the perfect word is for that, but other than inspiring other people, it gives you that connection that helps push people forward, maybe over that wall that they might feel is blocking them from pursuing something that they feel, oh, well, maybe I can't do it now because this happened. People like yourself inspire others to continue and to push through that.
Well, thank you. That's really kind of you to say. And I mean, that's why, I think it's really incredible, too, that you've made it part of your life mission as well to inform people and everything. So that's incredible. So,
Yeah, and thank you both.
yeah.
That's why I'm here, is because
Yes.
of Peter. He shows up for me and pushes me, and in some ways that few others would be willing. And so I'm thankful for him sharing his journey too, and his celebrated trip to Stanford for diversity and disability in the media as well. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And thank you, Chris, for driving all the way up here to be live in studio. Since it's a big love fest, I want to make sure to include everybody.
Hey, no problem.
The next
Love
time
being
that I'm
here.
in LA, I'll be live in studio.
Oh, yeah.
Is
definitely.
this part of Chris's therapy here? We stress him out, talk about football, and then there's hugs and love all around.
That's
right?
Yes.
Very therapeutic.
So without further ado, Caitlin, we'll end with, we've got a card made up with how people can reach you, but what is your fitness wellness tip for our audience this week?
Well, there's so many things, but I think the simplest thing to do is to get up and move. That I think that most people will come up with some sort of excuse in the day that they don't have enough time to exercise, or, that piece of cake looks really delicious and, they want to eat it. But I guess the simplest way, because we all want to enjoy a piece of cake, is to just get up and get moving. If you only have time to do a 15 or 20 minute workout, then get up and do a 15 or 20 minute workout. Because if you look at the big picture of things, even like with any athlete, as long as you get up and you're moving and you're putting in a little bit of effort every day, if you look at that, at the big picture of 365 days out of the year, you're going to see results. I always use the smallest example of, if you drink a cup of coffee every day and you're putting in 2 sugars and a little bit of milk, let's say, for example, that's 100 calories per day. If you look at that, on a big timeline of 365 days a year and equal those calories into pounds, if you cut out those 2 sugars a day and you drink your coffee black, or you use something like stevia, that's a healthy alternative that gives you the sweetness, over the long term, that one small little change that took maybe you to be mindful for 30 seconds is going to make a difference in the long run.
That's an amazing tip. We love it. So, Caitlin, thank you for being here with us all the way from Mexico City. And we've got the card up on how people can reach you. You look very good in your bathing suit on the card that you shared with us. But just let the people know, even though it's written on the screen, how they can reach out to you.
Yes, well, KitCait is my personal Instagram. If you're looking for more nutrition and health tips, you can go to my business page, which is Kit Body Fitness. It's KITBODY Fitness. But reach out to me anyway on my website, through Instagram, through Facebook. I have pages everywhere to get a hold of me. And if you're just looking for some advice, if you're looking for a coach, I'm sure I can help you get there.
Amazing. We're so grateful to have you as part of the show as a new feature, and we can't wait to see you in 2 weeks.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for having me, and thank you all for being an inspiration and sharing your stories. And hopefully all together can inspire and motivate others to do what they love to do.
Right on.
I
Thank
love
you,
it.
Caitlin.
Awesome, Caitlin.
Thanks, Caitlin. All right. That was fun. And that's a great tip. I mean, I think both of you as people that help and motivate people, the whole thing of taking the first step is an amazing piece of advice.
No, it's perfect. And, I want to get back to Chris's experience, but I was in this like rundown construction hotel, and they said they had a gym, and the treadmill turned on but didn't move, and the bike moved at like a 1. Like you couldn't even get, but I just kept thinking like, just even get out and walk. Like it's amazing what you can discover. There was these, hidden beautiful trails of the Ohio out back there. So, I caught the city, I caught the outdoors, and it really livens up your day. It shakes your negative mood or jet lag if you're a traveling person, and gets you back in your body. And it's amazing, that gift that your body gives you.
Absolutely. Chris?
I totally agree with that. I mean, I've heard a couple sayings, and I'll get into a little bit into how I got into like substance abuse recovery and how a lot of what I was talking about earlier led to this point of, not being able to deal with my feelings and medicating them with, alcohol and drugs. And when you go to these meetings, there's some really simple wisdom that is shared. And one of them was move a muscle, change a thought. Wow. Move a muscle, change a thought, and goes back to what Dr. Ken Ravizza says in his book. Make your mission more important than your feelings, because thoughts and feelings are kind of the two sides of the same coin. And if my thoughts and my feelings are telling me, stay here. If I go to my depression, and my message in my depression is going to be like, stay here, don't do anything. But if I actually move a muscle, get out, take a walk, my thoughts and my emotions they're just going to change. They have to. So there's so much about what she said. It goes so beyond just fitness. It's really mental health as well. So I totally agree.
So for everyone watching us out there on ubnradio.com or on facebook.com/RichardListens, don't forget, if you're watching on Facebook Live, leave your comments or questions. I know we have a lot of people checking in, and if I don't mention you, please don't feel no offense. Sometimes it just goes off my screen. But I do see our friend Amber Barrientos has checked in. And like I said, but if I don't mention your name, it's only because the names pass by. So, Chris, you talked about your background with high school sports, and there's so many people that can identify with that. And now we are fast forwarding all the way to who you are today. I mean, you obviously had other experiences that have made you who you are, but let's kind of like, give us that bridge from high school sports to the experiences you had in between to who you are today, kind of quickly, so that we can then get into the meat of things.
Yeah, well, so a lot of what I talked about earlier, having these issues emotionally, I found a way in college my senior year. I was with 7 guys that went freshman to senior, and I was around a bunch of guys that we just loved each other, and I had a phenomenal senior year. And then I got into minor league baseball, and minor league baseball, everybody's out for themselves, and that social support, that zone of comfort around me wasn't there, and that created this second implosion, and having a tough time with my emotions and my feelings. That was the first time I sought help for what I was going through, but I didn't get a lot out of it. So I left sports and got into corporate America, and I got involved in this high-pressure, lucrative sales field. And lo and behold, I got to a point in my late 20s where it just showed up again. And this theme of being petrified and of failure and being so fearful of failure that I was locked up and literally couldn't do anything. I couldn't get out of a car to go make a sales call. It's like everything that happened when I was 15 happened when I was 19, happened when I was 23, and then there you go. I'm 31 years old, and by now I have a drug addiction. So the short story: I woke up one day and realized I'm gonna die if I don't stop this. And this 12-step stuff, it worked for me. I called up, got into those meetings, and I had no idea. So that's about 8 years. Actually, Wednesday is my 7-year AA birthday. So
wow!
Yeah,
Congratulations!
Thank you.
That's no small feat.
Yeah. So I was around that community, and I was talking a lot about what I was going through, the neurosis, if you will call it. I mean, here I am going from being on something every day to nothing, and the thoughts and just the obsessions and just the crazy experience mentally and emotionally was just unbelievable. And the wonderful thing about those places, and I think some treatment facilities like this, therapy can be like this, is you get a chance to share without judgment. And the constant feedback I was getting is that you're sharing what I'm going through. I'd have people that had 10, 15, 20 years. You're sharing mentally and emotionally what I'm going through. So that feedback took me into the field of mental health. So I got my license to do clinical therapy. I got my master's in social work. And then as I had my license and I was practicing and doing therapy to get my hours to get licensed, I was just getting flooded with all of these ideas about, well, if I got to talk to myself at this age with this idea, I would have helped myself. But it was always related to sports, because my life was sports, and my struggle was related to sports, is all sports. So I'd be driving home thinking about talking to myself at age 12 and talking to myself at age 15 and what I would have said. And I hadn't read a sports psychology book at all, and not one. And I saw the Miracosta High School, which is in Manhattan Beach. I saw the coach at Chipotle, and I said, and he didn't know that I had never actually performed this talk, but this was about 4 years ago. And I went to him and I said, hey man, can I give your team a talk? I don't need to get paid. I just have this talk that I want to give them. And so I got out there, and there's 80 kids, freshman to senior, the whole program, and I just gave this 20-minute talk that I was just dying to give myself.
The coach brought in.
When I was done, he actually did not know this. He had his master's in sports psychology.
Wow.
And so when I got done, he said to me, Chris, you're saying the same thing that all the top guys are saying. How to be present, how to deal with your feelings, how to deal with failure, how to be, as Joe Madden will say a lot, how to be present, not perfect. And so I was just like, all right. So I started working on a volunteer basis with that high school team, and he helped me get connected to some more high school teams. And then I just started growing. So the long and short of it is I don't have any specific education on sports psychology. I have a clinical license to do psychotherapy. I feel like my personal experience having I literally, if you look up the IPS, and if you don't know what the IPS are, that's where you can't throw the ball 10 feet. And I did an interview with somebody when I was a guy that was doing a podcast back about 5 years ago. And he got me on the Wikipedia for the IPS. I couldn't throw the ball back to the pitcher. That's how bad it was. There's 30 people in the stands, and I'm overwhelmed. I'm in a 70,000 seat stadium with 70,000 people, and if I don't throw this ball perfectly, I have people pointing at me and telling me how terrible I am, and then I would just be like, how do I pull this off? And I just kind of flip it like I was cool, and well, at least if I don't get it there, it'll look cool, and I so spot that with kids that kind of give a half effort out of fear of failure, but they do it in this kind of I want to look cool kind of way so they can mask it. Oh, I see that from a mile away because I saw that. I was that. So this is a great story. So I'd heard of, a lot of guys kept saying, Dr. Ken Revisa, he lives in Redondo Beach. Well, I live in Hermosa Beach. So I just was like, I got to meet this guy. Well, I get a call from a friend I played college ball with, and he said, Dr. Ken Revisa is speaking to my high school team. He was the head coach for Torrance High School. I was driving there, and I was saying, I was out loud, this guy will be my mentor. He does not know it yet, but he will be, And I showed up early, and I just sat there, and you guys met Ken. He is the most humble, the most awesome guy, but he had a lot on his plate. So I asked him, can I meet with you? I got some ideas. I want to talk to you. I just got these ideas. I want to see what you think. And lo and behold, he had just finished his book, but it hadn't come out yet. He said, all right, Chris. He kind of gave me this I'm a nice guy, but I'm so busy. I don't know if I have any time for you. But he said, how about I'm going to give a talk, and how about you meet me about 30 minutes before the talk? I want you to read this entire book. So he sent me the entire manuscript of his new book, Heads Up Baseball 2, so it wasn't out yet. And he said, and I want you to tell me if this book works for high school athletes. And so I'm not much of a reader. I read 300 pages of sports psychology in 10 days. And I sat down with him, and I was like fired up. I said, I can't, he said a couple things that I was, just dying to hear when I was an athlete. Responding to your own reactions. I remember, like you're going to react the way you react, but you can not only respond to something externally, but you can respond to your own reactions. Like some of the things he was writing in there was so wonderful, and so that's how we met. And then lo and behold, when he went to go try to sell his book at a big conference, he called me up and said, Chris, would you join me at the conference and help sell the book? And I was like, I cleared my schedule. And I was on fire. I love what he talked. I love who he is, and I love what he talks about. So we've developed a relationship, and of course I met you guys because I helped to put on a training that was just so intimate and so wonderful. So
yeah, I kept telling people in Cleveland that we were at his house. They were like, first of all, they were like digging through my bag for the book.
Yeah.
And second of all, they were like, what? You went to his house?
Yeah.
So that's an amazing step in your own process too, is in leadership of knowing you need a mentor, and like being so certain in it, and you can contrast that with the voice that was telling you like, if I fail, if any, like the paralyzing fear. Instead, when you have this mentor, it's like this opening of permission to go forward.
Yeah. To me, I like to think about being connected to myself, and that's one of the things I learned. I think I started learning it in recovery. And I think what I try to do with athletes is help them get connected to themselves. And Dr. David Snarch, you probably have. The book's called Passionate Marriage. So let's bring this into sports, huh? But some of his, life and sports intersect. He calls it having a solid but flexible sense of self. And I find that a lot of times what's lacking is this ability to have a solid but flexible sense of self. So I'm solid where I have a sense of what I'm doing, what I'm experiencing, what I need to work on, what I'm good at. Yet when a coach comes and gives me feedback, or if I make a mistake, I can be flexible and make the adjustments. And so that's the kind of the stuff that but to do that means having a connection with myself that isn't, like I said, being present, not perfect, Joe Madden, right? Because if I got to be perfect, I have no choice but to beat myself up the second I'm not. So those kinds of things are what I like to help athletes with.
And Chris, what I love about your story too is that you came from this place that you were pretty down low in the depths. And Dr. Richard, I want you to reflect on this a little bit. We come across lots of people with addiction and with issues, and it's kind of hard for them to come out of that spiral. But Chris's story is so inspirational to not only come out of it, but to where he is today.
Well, I'm just inspired that he made that call, and that anyone with addiction, that they have that strength to make that first call, and how hard it is, because those feelings and emotions are overpowering. And like you said, it's like installed in us and reinforced through sometimes a failure of parenting or coaches. I mean, how many athletes I talked to that they just did not have the coaches that they needed emotionally. And their lives were shaped by very critical parents, and that drove them to success to a certain level. And we're realizing now, and there's a lot of pain in sports and opiates at the professional level. So the power of group, the power of community, and how you can find yourself through finding some healthy connection to a community, and the fact that his voice was heard within those meetings. And like you said, AA may not be the method for everybody, but the fact that it was held and then validated, that we feel that, and we've been through that process, and that launched then his permission to give back to others in a bigger way, just speaks to me that the transformation of connection, of human connection, interaction.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the show goes by. We only have a couple minutes left, and I did want to address the whole topic of youth and sports and stuff, and obviously we don't have time to get into it in great depth. And before we wrap up the show, we will let people know how you can get a hold of Chris and everything. But from everything I've heard from both of you, who are big experts in your field, who I highly respect, maybe just a couple of words for our audience from both of you. Why is it so important to get this message out to kids? You both played sports as youth. I've heard Richard in the past talk about he wishes he had heard some of these things. Now we're hearing it from you, Chris. So, Chris, and then Richard, why is it important to get this message, the help out, the word out to the kids?
I think, put simply, I think we have a conspiracy in our culture where we walk outside and we see people succeeding, and they're succeeding in outcome. And to succeed in athletics, and really I think to succeed in life, we've got to become more process-driven. And I think that our essence is resilience. That's what we are resilience. But it's process-based. And the way I'm resilient is I'm process-based, meaning the next thing is going to get me there, not the outcome. Now I want to make sure I'm in the direction of my outcome, but the next thing. And when I have that process-based life, I'm not so worried about what happens, because what does resilient mean? To withstand and to recover quickly. So I think we got it stacked up against us when we see an outcome-based society, but we're trying to get to be what they call process warriors. So that's what I would say.
And Richard?
The relationship is key, that having fun in what you do, and I think in all the stats have tracked that, like when you do a questionnaire about why a youth is playing the sport they do, that enjoyment is going increasingly down on the list. And it has to be something fun. And if you're a dad who, even if you're older, I mean, and, if you can throw a ball, if you can watch your kid throw a ball off the wall, I mean, being a part of that interaction in that space does so much for them. Like we were talking about, getting out and moving, watching them move, just being in joy in that space, and the relationship that develops between you and them, in witnessing it. I mean, for me, just being able to show someone that I made a basket was like self-esteem building as a kid. So it's like friendships matter, even how the percentages are low that you'll make the majors, but even if you are, having a meaningful, connected life is where I'd like to direct people.
That's incredible. Chris, there's so much more we could have talked about and gotten into tonight, but hopefully we'll have you back on in the future, because, it was not even the tip of the iceberg tonight. I mean, the depths we can go with you are incredible, but thanks for being here live to share what you were able to share. We have your contact information on the screen, but go ahead and tell people how they could reach you.
Check me out. My website is chrisstretch.com. And if you want to see some of the work I do, Instagram, authenticity_in_performance. And I want to thank you, gentlemen, for having me on. And I hope I could come back, because I think we have so much to talk about.
Oh, yeah. I think, Richard, without a doubt, we got to get Chris back in a couple months, right?
Whole youth sports focus, and hopefully Dr. Ken will join them.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And we will be back here live in 2 weeks on Richard Listens on Sports. And you could always reach us through facebook.com/RichardListens, or Richard's website at www.richardlistens.com, and at Richard Listens on Instagram and Twitter. But thanks for joining us, and a little goodbye, Richard.
A little goodbye, Richard. Thanks, everyone, for sharing the journey. Thank you, City of Cleveland. Indians, hope you turn it around. And
we'll see you in 2 weeks.